The measure of worth is an illusion, a smoke and mirror trick that fools most into seeking validation in the wrong places. They set the stage with their opinions, their stares, their whispers, as if their perception is the ultimate truth. But what they fail to grasp is that value isn't found in the reflection of others' eyes. It is forged in the chaos of self-realization, where no external gaze can penetrate. Your worth is yours to define, untouchable by the hands of those who judge without seeing. Some people think worth is something granted, bestowed like a badge of honor. As if their applause makes you valuable, their silence renders you nothing. But here's the irony. Most who measure others have no measure of themselves. Their perception is a fractured mirror, a distorted lens through which they project their own inadequacies. To base your value on their judgment is to shackle your existence to their broken compass. Silence can be louder than applause, and rejection more affirming than praise. When the world tries to convince you that your worth depends on their acceptance, let their noise fade into the background. The real currency of value lies in how you rise in the face of dismissal. Let the weight of their disregard become the force that sharpens your edges until their perceptions crumble like ash in the wind. There's a strange beauty in breaking away from their expectations. Once you stop seeking approval, you realize how fragile the whole game is. The same people who sought to define your worth can't even define their own. Their perception is a house of cards built on borrowed opinions, ready to collapse the moment you stop playing by their rules. Your worth was never theirs to determine. Strength is often misjudged as arrogance when it doesn't kneel to the will of others. When you refuse to be boxed into their labels, it unsettles them. They mistake your self-assurance for defiance, your independence for rebellion. But that is the power of knowing your worth. It frees you from their game entirely. You don't need to shout your value. Your silence says enough. In their world, worth is transactional, given and taken based on convenience. But real value doesn't conform to such fragile dynamics. It's carved into your soul, built on your resilience, your scars, and your triumphs. Their opinions are fleeting, insignificant. Like shadows at dusk, they shift and fade, unable to touch the light that burns within you. Some will try to strip you of your worth to elevate their own. They thrive on comparisons, measuring their success by making others feel small. But their perception is their prison, not yours. By standing tall in the face of their judgment, you become a mirror to their insecurities. Your strength reminds them of their weakness, your confidence of their fear. Walking away from their validation feels like rebellion, but it's liberation. To see yourself without the filter of their opinions is to reclaim your power. In their eyes, your worth might always be too little or too much, never just right. But your worth doesn't exist in their scale. It exists in the moments you choose yourself over their expectations. The irony of worth is that the more you own it, the less others' perceptions matter. Your value isn't amplified by their recognition, nor diminished by their scorn. It stands, unyielding, in the face of all their attempts to define you. And when you embody that truth, you strip them of their power over you, leaving them in the shadow of their own irrelevance. Loving yourself is an act of rebellion in a world that thrives on doubt. It demands a bravery that outshines the superficial courage praised by others. This isn't the bravery of marching into battle or making grand sacrifices. It's the bravery of standing alone in the quiet, unflinching, against the shadows of your own self-doubt. To love yourself is to hold the line against the noise of the world, to look into the mirror and choose to see worth, even when no one else does. The greatest battles are fought in silence, behind closed doors, away from prying eyes. Loving yourself requires you to be your own ally in these unseen wars. It asks you to stand in defiance of the voices, real or imagined, that whisper inadequacy. When the world dismisses you, when people abandon you, it's your own loyalty to yourself that must remain unshaken. Betray that, and you lose the war before it even begins. There is no applause for self-worth, no trophies for self-love. It's a fire you keep alive in the coldest of storms, a light only you can see. The world rewards those who conform, who bend to its expectations. But the truly free carry their worth like armor, unyielding to the praise or criticism of others. To love yourself is to declare independence from the tyranny of their approval. Believing in your worth is not just a feeling, it's a discipline. It's in the choices you make, the boundaries you set, and the battles you refuse to fight. Every time you stand up for yourself, every time you refuse to let someone define you, you are practicing loyalty to the one thing that matters most, your own being. This loyalty isn't flashy or dramatic. It's quiet, unbreakable, and fierce. Loving yourself means choosing yourself over and over again, even when it feels easier to give in. The world will push you to compromise, to shrink yourself to fit its narrow definitions. But self-love demands that you resist. It requires you to hold on to the invisible thread of your own worth, no matter how frayed it becomes. It's in the act of holding on that your worth becomes unshakable. People are drawn to those who love themselves, not because they want to celebrate them, but because self-love is a power few can fathom. It intimidates those who live for the approval of others, who have never dared to stand alone. To love yourself is to wield a strength that others envy, even as they try to tear it down. But their attempts to break you are futile against the fortress of your self-worth. There will always be those who question your value, who try to make you doubt yourself. But their perception is irrelevant. Loving yourself is not about proving them wrong. It's about knowing you never needed their validation in the first place. Your worth exists independently of their opinions, as untouchable as the stars in the sky. And just like the stars, it burns brightest in the darkest moments. Loving yourself doesn't mean you are perfect. It means you are human, and you embrace that humanity with all its flaws. It's about standing in the wreckage of your mistakes and still choosing to move forward. It's about knowing that your worth is not diminished by failure or rejection. In fact, it is in those moments of hardship that your self-love becomes a lifeline, pulling you out of the darkness. The world will try to convince you that loving yourself is selfish, but self-love is the most selfless act of all. When you love yourself, you free others from the burden of defining your worth. You no longer seek to extract validation from those around you. Instead, you become a source of strength, a beacon for others to find their own worth. Self-love is not a shield against the world. It is a light that pierces through it. The deeper you learn to love yourself, the more the universe bends in recognition of your value. This is not some ethereal promise or empty whisper of comfort. It is a law as ruthless as gravity. Love yourself fiercely, and you will alter the orbit of your existence. The universe reflects your worth, not by bending to your will, but by aligning with the power of your self-perception. Every act of love you grant yourself sends out ripples, commanding the unseen forces to shift in acknowledgement. Loving yourself is not an indulgence. It is a revolution. It dismantles the narratives imposed by others, rewriting the story with your own blood and resolve. Each step you take in self-love draws you closer to a version of yourself that cannot be silenced or diminished. The universe has no choice but to bow before the one who refuses to be anything less than what they are meant to be. It's not a gift, it's a demand, and the world will meet it. The depth of your self-love determines the breadth of your power. Those who cannot love themselves are condemned to beg for scraps of affection and significance from others. But when you love yourself deeply, you stop asking for permission to exist. You stop begging to be seen. Instead, you command attention, not through force, but by the gravity of your own presence. The universe has no greater lesson to teach than this. To love yourself is to become undeniable. Loving yourself deeply doesn't mean you won't be tested. It ensures that you will be. Every shadow, every challenge will rise to meet your light, seeking to extinguish it. But the one who loves themselves has already faced the darkest trials within. They have wrestled with their own demons and emerged, not unscarred, but undefeated. And the universe, ever watching, grants them the strength to face the battles ahead, knowing they have chosen to stand. The world has a way of testing those who dare to love themselves. It throws its full weight against them, daring them to falter, to return to the safety of self-loathing. But self-love is not fragile. It is forged in fire. Those who love themselves deeply do not crumble under pressure. They transform it into the fuel that propels them forward. They know that the universe is not kind, but it is fair, and it respects those who respect themselves. To love yourself is to reject the smallness others try to impose upon you. It is to understand that your worth is not something that needs validation. It is an immutable fact. The universe has no patience for those who hesitate, who wait for the world's permission to rise. But it rewards those who love themselves enough to act, to claim their place, and to shine without apology. This is the deal the universe offers, and it is as brutal as it is beautiful. Self-love doesn't eliminate pain. It gives it purpose. The wounds inflicted by others, the scars left behind by betrayal, are not erased by loving yourself. Instead, they become the markings of a battle survived, a testament to your resilience. The universe honors those who turn their pain into power, who refuse to let their wounds define them. Love yourself deeply, and you will find that even the cruelest scars can become your greatest strength. Loving yourself is the ultimate defiance in a world that profits from self-doubt. It is a rebellion against every force that seeks to make you small. The universe has no tolerance for mediocrity, and neither should you. To love yourself is to demand excellence from your own soul, to hold yourself accountable for the greatness that lies within. The deeper your love, the louder the universe answers, amplifying your worth until it cannot be ignored. The universe is not indifferent. It is calculating. It watches how you treat yourself, how you speak to yourself, how you carry yourself, and it responds in kind. Love yourself poorly, and the universe mirrors that neglect. Love yourself deeply, and it multiplies your efforts, rewarding your self-investment with opportunities and victories you never imagined. Self-love is the seed, and the universe is the soil. It grows only what you plant. Do not dilute the essence of who you are for anyone. The moment you water yourself down to appease another is the moment you begin to vanish. The world is not kind to those who bend. It rewards those who remain unyielding, rooted in the truth of their own being. In the endless game of human interaction, the ones who thrive are not those who blend in, but those who stand unapologetically apart. To dilute yourself is to betray the very essence that makes you irreplaceable. There's a unique strength in holding firm to your boundaries, your identity, and your worth. Those who seek to dim your light will always be uncomfortable in its glow, and yet their discomfort is not your burden to bear. The world respects those who refuse to compromise the core of who they are, even when the pressure to conform is relentless. To dilute yourself for acceptance is to trade authenticity for mediocrity. Every time you alter yourself to fit someone else's narrative, you lose a piece of your own. It's a slow erosion, a gradual fading, until one day you wake up and no longer recognize the person in the mirror. The cost of dilution is far greater than the cost of rejection. Rejection may sting, but at least it leaves you intact. Dilution corrodes the soul, leaving behind a hollow shell of what once was. Refuse to play small for the comfort of others. The ones who matter are not intimidated by your fullness. They are inspired by it. Those who shrink away from your strength are not your people, and their opinions are not your concern. Diluting yourself only attracts those who feed on weakness, who prey on uncertainty. Stand tall, and the world will either rise to meet you or fall away. Either outcome serves your growth. There will always be those who try to make you feel as though you are too much, too bold, too different, too strong. But the problem lies not in your intensity, but in their inability to handle it. The solution is not to diminish yourself, but to surround yourself with those who appreciate your fire. Dilution is a betrayal of the very forces that make you unique, and nothing good comes from betraying yourself. To dilute yourself is to underestimate your own worth. It is to say, I am not enough as I am, and to seek validation through transformation. But worth is not something that can be earned through conformity. It is intrinsic, immutable, and unshakable. The moment you stop diluting yourself to fit someone else's expectations is the moment you reclaim your power. And once reclaimed, power is not easily surrendered again. The world is filled with those who live in half measures, who dilute their dreams, their talents, their very essence to fit into boxes designed by others. But greatness is never found in dilution. It is found in the fullness of being, in the unapologetic embrace of all that you are. Dilution is a slow death. Authenticity is a fierce, unrelenting life. The choice is yours to make. Every act of dilution is an act of fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of judgment. Fear of standing alone. But fear is not a worthy master, and it is certainly not a worthy guide. Let your actions be driven by conviction, not fear. Let your worth be defined by your own standards, not by the expectations of others. To dilute yourself is to surrender to fear. To stand firm is to conquer it. The world does not need more diluted versions of greatness. It needs the raw, unfiltered power of those who dare to be themselves, the ones who refuse to compromise their essence for the fleeting approval of others. To dilute yourself is to betray not just yourself, but also the world that desperately needs your authenticity. Greatness is never found in compromise. It is found in the courage to remain whole. When you choose not to dilute yourself, you send a message to the universe that you are enough as you are, and that you will not apologize for your existence. The universe responds to that kind of conviction. When you reach your breaking point, it's not an end. It's an invitation. a line drawn in the sand by forces unseen, daring you to step over it and never look back. It's the moment when you realize that the weight crushing your soul is not a test of endurance, but a call to revolt. Breaking points are misunderstood. They're not the sign of weakness, but the birth cry of strength that refuses to remain silent any longer. The world doesn't reward the unbroken. It fears those who shatter the chains and make their own rules. The moment you break free, the air tastes different. It's sharper, colder, more alive. The cage you've lived in suddenly seems smaller, ridiculous even, as though you'd outgrown it long ago, but hadn't dared to stretch. Breaking free isn't just an act of defiance, it's a reclamation. You're not escaping something. You're returning to yourself, to the version of you that existed before compromise and pain eroded your edges. Freedom, once touched, changes you forever. Breaking points strip away the lies you've told yourself to survive. The excuses, the justifications, the distractions, they crumble, leaving you face to face with the raw, unfiltered essence of who you are. It's terrifying, but it's also the most liberating experience you'll ever have. The world is terrified of people who have broken free because nothing scares them anymore. Fear is a leash that snaps the moment you take your first step toward liberation. When you break free, you realize how many people live bound by invisible threads, expectations, fears, and loyalties misplaced. They look at you with a mix of awe and resentment, unable to comprehend how you escaped what they still endure. But freedom isn't something you owe an explanation for. It's a fire that consumes everything false and leaves only what is real. To be free is to be untouchable. The breaking point isn't just a moment, it's a threshold, a gateway to a life you never thought was possible because you were too busy surviving to imagine living. Breaking free is not a single act, but a series of choices, each one pulling you further from the ashes and closer to the stars. The people who once held you down will never understand your transformation, but their understanding is irrelevant. Freedom isn't about them, it's about you. Some will call you ruthless for walking away, for severing ties, for prioritizing yourself above all else. Let them. Ruthlessness is just another word for clarity when spoken by those who are too afraid to do what needs to be done. When you reach your breaking point, you realize that kindness without boundaries is self-destruction. Breaking free isn't cruelty, it's survival. It's recognizing that you are worth saving, even if it means disappointing others. The world is designed to keep people in their place, to make breaking points feel like endings instead of beginnings. But those who dare to break free are the ones who rewrite the script. Breaking points are not failures. They are awakenings. They remind you that the rules you've been living by were never meant to serve you. When you break free, you stop playing by their rules and start making your own. The cost of breaking free is high, but the cost of staying bound is higher. The pain of leaving the familiar behind is nothing compared to the agony of staying where you don't belong. Breaking points force you to confront the fact that the life you've been living isn't the life you were meant to live. To break free is to accept that the only way forward is to burn the bridges behind you. Those who fear their breaking points will never understand the power of yours. Breaking free is a choice that not everyone has the courage to make. It's a declaration of independence from the chains of others' expectations. When you reach your breaking point, you realize that the cage was never locked. The only thing keeping you inside was the illusion that you couldn't leave. Breaking free shatters that illusion and sets you on a path that is entirely your own.